If you would have told a younger me back in 2002, right after I finished watching the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man, that one day we would have a Madam Web movie, then I would probably call you crazy. Now that I've actually seen the Madam Web movie, I still can't wrap my head around how comic book movies got to this point. When you think about how far the genre has fallen from 2002 all the way to where we currently find ourselves in 2024, it's astonishing. When it comes right down to it, Madam Web is pretty much exactly what you think it is, in the worst way possible. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
Before I get started, I'd like to kindly ask that you hit the like button, and please subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.
Come on. Do it. Do it!
Madam Web follows Cassandra Webb, a New York City paramedic who starts to show signs of clairvoyance. Forced to confront revelations about her past, she must protect 3 young women from a mysterious adversary who wants them dead. Now I know a lot of you are probably expecting me to go on this long, angry tirade about this movie, where I tell you how bad this movie is and how much it pissed me off. But if I'm being honest, at this point, you have to do something really egregious to make me care enough to inspire that type of emotional reaction about a comic book movie. In fact, I had a very similar reaction to Madam Web that I have towards a lot of other comic book movies. And that's not much of a reaction at all. To me, with Madam Web, we have fully entrenched ourselves in an era of the genre that is filled with nothing movies. What Madam Web comes down to, if I had to sum it up, is there's a lot of going on while simultaneously nothing is happening. I just fail to see a reason why this movie exists. Who is benefiting from this? I mean, they had to know that it's not going to make any money, right? And if there were Madam Web fans, you are probably alienating them with this movie by changing the character and story. And when it comes right down to it, this is just another example of Hollywood studios giving a character a movie that doesn't really need one. At this point, you're really just milking the Spider-Man IP that you own, nothing more and nothing less. We've actually come to a point where most, if not all, comic book movies currently being produced are basically just CW shows with a slightly bigger budget. This whole movie just quite literally feels like a studio going through the motions and throwing at the wall to see what sticks. To the point where it doesn't even feel like a coherent movie at times.
That makes sense.
It kind of makes you wonder how something like this gets greenlit in the first place, when literally no one is benefiting from it. We talk about Easter eggs a lot when modern comic book movies are brought up. Sometimes Easter eggs are used to prop up what would otherwise be considered a pretty average movie. But sometimes those Easter eggs are at least delivered in a clever way. This movie, on the other hand, beats you over the head with these Easter eggs just so the audience understands that this story is most definitely Spider-Man related. They're basically doing everything in their power to try to convince the audience that they should be excited about the future of Spider-Man at Sony.
Good luck. You're gonna need it.
We'll even go as far to show you a scene with Peter Parker's baby shower, and awkwardly inject a variation of "with great power comes great responsibility" on more than one occasion. It's like they're trying to tease us with something that we've already seen a lot. We get it, it's a prequel and Spider-Man is a part of this world eventually. But the more you bring him up and the more you allude to his existence, it just makes me care about these characters less and less. This is basically the ultimate example of a studio not really having faith in these new characters to stand on their own. So they give you Easter eggs referencing a much more popular character that pretty much defeats the purpose of this movie existing in the first place. We're basically just sitting there saying, yes, we understand that you think these characters suck, now where is Spider-Man? How am I supposed to be interested if the studio isn't even interested enough to portray these characters properly?
I don't get it.
Dakota Johnson is fine, I guess, in the role, But to me, she never once felt like the Madam Web that a lot of people are going to want to see. Only towards the very end of the film do they try to tie everything up in a nice little bow and make her recognizable. But by that time, 2 hours have passed, and the audience just really doesn't care. As far as the girls that she is supposed to be protecting, not a single one of these 3 characters is the least bit memorable. They are all literally walking cliches. It's like Sony realized they had the rights to all of these female Spider-Man universe characters, and they tried to shoehorn them all into one movie just because they think that's exactly what audiences want in 2024. And then you have the villain Ezekiel, who is basically just a dark version of Spider-Man. Not only is the guy playing him one of the worst actors I remember seeing in recent memory in a film, with the most awkward and cheesy villain dialogue delivery you have probably ever heard, but his very existence raises some questions as it pertains to the overall outlook of this entire universe.
Because it's all part of the plan.
I don't know what Sony's obsession is with the idea that literally anyone can be Spider-Man or Spider-Man-like, because that's not the flex that they think it is. It would make sense if this was leading to a story where this villain was responsible and the reason for why people do not trust Spider-Man when he ultimately shows up. But I don't think this movie is anywhere near smart enough to make that connection. So all it really does in the end is again make Spider-Man Peter Parker feel less special. There's even an ancient tribe of Spider-Men in Peru that are somehow tied to Madam Web's origins. If it's starting to sound convoluted, that's because it is. And Peter Parker is basically just another guy in this universe.
You serious?
It should also be noted that the structure of this film basically consists of you, the viewer, seeing every scene in this movie twice. First, you get to see her vision of what will happen, and then you see what actually happens, or you see her trying to prevent what happens. And I understand that it's being done to establish the character's powers. But after a while, if I'm being honest, I just got tired of seeing it. What's kind of unfortunate about this movie is that in a weird sort of way, there are ideas contained within it that make me think there could have been a decent movie in here somewhere. But as always, the execution is terrible, and they pretty much dropped the ball with what could have been a pretty unique concept. It's like they didn't trust their audience with aspects of this film to put things together for themselves. And the movie is kind of chock full of moments like that, and it's all the signs of a very poorly written film.
Put some effort into it!
Even the action scenes are kind of dull. It basically just comes down to, well, the bad guy attacks and we escape in a taxi. Then he attacks again and we escape in an ambulance. It's literally the same thing over and over again. It's like a giant metaphor for the formulaic nature of comic book movies in general. Bottom line, this movie is just as forgettable as a lot of people are saying that it is. But don't let anyone convince you that this is somehow leaps and bounds worse than all of the other garbage we've been getting in this genre lately. Sony is basically just filling the void that is left behind by Disney deciding they didn't want to release any garbage this year. I don't know who asked for the Spider-Man universe to be expanded with solo projects for secondary characters and villains that really don't need their own film. But whoever that person is probably shouldn't be making any more creative decisions. It's not the worst comic book movie I've ever seen, but it is certainly one of the most mediocre. And that's why Madam Web is getting the careless Sam Gerard.
I don't care!
Y'all be cool. Right on.